Our cover story tonight comes from 3 different continents. It's about 3 different leaders, but they're making the same demand. Make China pay. Hold it accountable for what the world is suffering. Ursula von der Leyen, Scott Morrison and Donald Trump. These are leaders of 3 powerful blocs in world politics. And they all seem to agree for once on one thing: an independent investigation into the origins of the coronavirus. America is conducting its own investigation. Australia has called for a global investigation, and now the President of the European Commission has backed that call. The European Commission is the executive arm of the European Union. Ursula von der Leyen is its president. She was speaking to an American network where she backed the call for a probe. Let me tell you exactly what she said, and I'm quoting, "I think this is important for all of us. I mean, for the whole world. It is important. You never know when the next virus is starting, so we all want for the next time. We have learned our lesson, and we've established a system of early warning that really functions, and the whole world has to contribute to that." Not only does she want a probe, she wants China to join it. Fat chance of that happening, but Beijing cannot feign indifference anymore. The pressure is mounting, and it's coming from all directions. Different countries are using different diplomatic levers to pressurize China. Australia, for instance, it has opened another front in its diplomatic tussle with the Chinese. Australia now wants to back Taiwan's entry into the World Health Organization, the WHO, something that China has been blocking. It's also a move that is bound to infuriate China. The relationship between Australia and China is already tense. It is now set to significantly worsen on the 17th of May. Why the 17th of May? That's the day when the World Health Assembly will meet. This is the annual gathering of WHO member countries, World Health Assembly. Australia plans to use this occasion to raise a demand, a call for a global independent review into the coronavirus outbreak. Last month, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison announced his intentions. Today, he has repeated his promise.
We know it started in China. We know it started in Wuhan. The most likely scenario that has been canvassed relates to wildlife wet markets, but that's a matter that would have to be thoroughly assessed. This is one of the reasons why it is important that we just have an objective, independent assessment of how this originated and learn the lessons from how that occurred. It's, I think, an entirely sensible suggestion. It's one that has broad-based support. It's one that is being recommended by the European Union to the World Health Assembly. It's one that a recommendation will be supporting and speaking to, and we think that's really necessary.
Despite the threats from China, Australia is not backing down. What about America? US President Donald Trump is going all guns blazing. He is looking for ways to punish China. Last night, he launched a fresh attack. The US president said that the virus could have leaked from a lab in China. Donald Trump said he has seen the evidence. Unfortunately for him, US intelligence also released a report saying it wasn't made in a lab. They're not sure of it. So if the president has seen the evidence, he clearly hasn't shared it with his intelligence team.
And my question is, have you seen anything at this point that gives you a high degree of confidence that the Wuhan Institute of Virology was the origin of this virus?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. And I think that the World Health Organization should be ashamed of themselves because they're like the public relations agency for China.
Sometimes I tend to agree with him. This is an explosive claim. The reporters present there asked counter questions of Trump. Questions like, is the president insinuating that China intentionally let the virus spread? Donald Trump did not deny it.
Well, they could have done it, and I'm just saying, well, one of two things happened. They either didn't do it, and, they couldn't do it from a competent standpoint, or they let it spread.
Trump's pronouncements make for great headlines, but here's a word of caution. Take these claims with a lump of salt. The US intelligence community is yet to come up with their final report. Trump does not like to wait. He is going after China. The intel can follow. The president is also looking for ways to strip China of its sovereign immunity. That's according to the US press. Trump is said to have privately discussed this with his aides. Sovereign immunity means that a government cannot be sued without its consent. China enjoys it, and obviously China will not give its consent to be sued. Now, Donald Trump is looking for ways to limit China's rights. This would allow the US government or the victims of this outbreak to sue China for damages. We've already seen at least 3 lawsuits being filed in America. 2 are class action lawsuits. 1 lawsuit has been filed by the state of Missouri. Now, the question is this: can America do what Donald Trump wants? Can China be made to lose its sovereign immunity? Legal experts say this will be very difficult to do. The US government will have to push a legislation to change the legal status of China, something that would violate international law. But history tells us that American leaders have scant regard for international law or norms. For once, they may be using this brazenness for the right reasons.
A Chinese national was captured on video insulting Kenyans, and the president is being deported. Liu Jiaqi was referred to Kenyans as, quote, poor black smelly monkeys, end of quote. Is being deported this evening. His flight is set to leave the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport at 10:45 p.m. The Ministry of Immigration says he was deported on racism grounds hours after his permit for selling motorcycles was cancelled. The Chinese embassy in Nairobi says that the remarks were personal and do not in any way represent the views of the vast majority of Chinese people.
Really? Yeah, it's like you are punishing me.
It is a clip that has gone viral on social media. Chinese national identified as Liu Jiaqi hurling insults at Kenyans. In the video captured by an employee at his motorcycle shop in Ruiru, he refers to Kenyans, including President Uhuru Kenyatta, as monkeys.
This is all the Kenyans, like a monkey. Even Uhuru Kenyatta, all of them.
It's like a monkey?
Yeah, sure.
The president of this country?
Yeah, sure.
Liu, who was nicknamed Judge by his employees, brags that there is nothing poor, black, smelly Kenyans can do to him if he fires the employee.
Here.
You don't care?
I don't belong to here. I don't like here. Like a monkey people. I don't like. Talk with them. Smell is bad, and poor, and foolish, and black. Who like them? Why not the bright people? Like the American?
Then why are you coming to do business in Kenya if we are poor, we are black, for money?
The government was quick to act. Liu was arrested and his work permit cancelled. Through its Twitter handle, the Immigration Department said Liu Jiaqi, a Chinese national who was arrested due to his racism remarks, has been deported.
In 1957, the founding father of China, Mao Zedong, made a declaration. He said that he is not afraid of nuclear war. Let me quote the exact words. There are 2.7 billion people in the world. It doesn't matter if some get killed. That's what he said. Mao Zedong did not care for human life. His successors have followed in his path. 63 years on, the present Chinese leadership does not care for human life either. A pandemic that began in China has spread to the entire world. More than 170,000 people have died, and now China is being held accountable. The world wants China to pay. On Gravitas tonight, we tell you how different stakeholders in at least 5 countries want China to pay for causing deaths, for hiding facts, and for hurting economies. Headline number 1, the American state of Missouri is taking China to court. In the past few weeks, we've reported about private lawsuits from the world over. But this one is different. This is one government suing another. Elected officials in America are taking legal action against China. We have accessed a copy of the lawsuit. It's on your screen right now. Here are the charges. China did not inform the World Health Organization about human-to-human transmission, even when the local medical community had indications. Chinese leaders did little to curb the spread of the virus. They allowed thousands of people to travel in and out of Wuhan. The lawsuit says everything. It talks about how whistleblowers were punished for speaking out. It even talks about faulty medical equipment. But is all of this just to embarrass China? Can a lawsuit like this achieve anything more? Can China be sued in America? Technically, no, because China enjoys sovereign immunity. But the lawmakers in Missouri are optimistic. China, meanwhile, was quick to dismiss the lawsuit. It says this case is absurd. It lacks factual or legal basis.
This so-called lawsuit is an abuse of litigation which violates basic legal principles. According to the principle of sovereignty equality in international law, the sovereign actions taken by Chinese government at all levels for the epidemic prevention and control are not subject to the jurisdiction of the US courts. Such abuse of litigation is not conducive to the epidemic prevention and control at home in the United States and runs counter to international cooperation. What the United States should do is refute and reject such abuse of litigation.
China may dismiss these lawsuits. These cases might not even stand the scrutiny of court, but that's not stopping people from filing them. Here's another one. An Israeli NGO is planning a class action lawsuit. Shurat Hadin is a Tel Aviv-based civil rights organization. They usually focus on terror victims. This time they're focusing on a different kind of terror. They plan to sue China for compensation. When the outbreak began, China blocked the flow of information. Transparency could have saved lives. But China attempted a cover-up. And even today, it might be hiding what the world needs to know. Leaders are now demanding facts. What happened in December during the initial days of the outbreak? That's the question that Angela Merkel has asked. The German Chancellor wants a full disclosure from China. Listen to this.
I think that the more transparently China makes clear the story of the emergence of this virus, the better it is for all of us to learn from it. But we have not had this specific discussion.
The German Chancellor is not the only leader to question China. Australia's foreign minister wants a global investigation. Marie Spain wants an investigation into the origin of the virus. An investigation that is done independently and not by the World Health Organization, she says. The Australian minister says that the virus came from China and countries across the world must come together to launch a probe.
I think the key to going forward in the context of these issues is transparency. Transparency from China, most certainly. Transparency from all of the key countries across the world who will be part of any review that takes place. We share some of the concerns that the United States have identified in relation to the World Health Organization. That is certainly correct. I think it, though, it is about an independent mechanism, and I'm not sure that you can have the health organisation, which has been responsible for disseminating much of the international communications material and doing much of the early engagement and investigative work, also as the review mechanism.
She couldn't have been clearer. The Australian Prime Minister has backed the Foreign Minister's call. More transparency. An international investigation depends on global consensus. That may not be easy to achieve. But pressure is mounting on various governments to push in this direction. The United Kingdom, for example, where citizens are now raising this demand. 8 out of 10 people in the UK want China to face a global inquiry. The Henry Jackson Society conducted a poll. They found more than 80% of Britons saying that they would back such an investigation. So 5 countries, the United States, Israel, Germany, Australia, and the United Kingdom, people, governments, organizations, they're all raising the same demand. Make China pay.